He came home with a divorce and left homeless. I knew something was wrong the moment he walked through the door early. No smile, no kiss, just his coat still on like he wasn't planning to stay long. He told me he was heading to a dinner that night, not a client dinner, not a networking thing, a date, and not with me. At first, I laughed because it sounded like a joke that didn't land. Then I saw his face, calm, decided, like he'd already rehearsed this part. That's when he said it. He wanted a divorce. I didn't ask who it was. I already knew. His secretary, the one who suddenly had opinions in meetings, the one who started sitting in on decisions she had nothing to do with, the one who smiled too much when she thought I wasn't looking. What made it worse wasn't the betrayal, it was the rewriting of history. He talked like the company was his, like I was just someone who had been there, not someone who helped build it brick by brick. But I remembered the nights, the unpaid months, the lease I signed when no one else believed in us, the clients I brought in while he took the credit, the contracts I drafted, the sacrifices I made while he chased the image of success. He packed a bag like he was the victim, like leaving me for someone younger was some kind of courage. After he left, I didn't cry. I opened the filing cabinet. That's when I found the paperwork he never thought I'd look at. The signatures he rushed, the clauses he ignored, the quiet detail that changed everything. Because the company wasn't his the way he thought it was. And the dinner he was heading to, that was the last night he still believed he had anything left to lose. I didn't confront him that night, not because I was afraid of what he would say, but because I already understood something he didn't. That once someone shows you they're willing to walk away without looking back, the conversation is already over. While he was sitting across from her at that dinner, telling a carefully edited version of our history that painted him as brave and trapped and overdue for happiness, I was sitting alone in the office we once shared, surrounded by filing cabinets that held more truth than he ever bothered to remember. I stayed there all night, not pacing or crying, but working with the kind of focus that only comes when denial finally burns off. I opened contracts we signed when we were exhausted and broke and optimistic enough to believe trust could replace caution. I reread emails from years ago where he casually handed over authority because he was overwhelmed, distracted, or convinced I'd always act in his best interest no matter what. Page by page, signature by signature, it became clear that the foundation he thought was unshakable had quietly shifted under his feet long before he decided to leave. When the sun came up, I didn't feel victorious or heartbroken. I felt certain. I filed first because timing matters when the truth is on your side. And by the time he walked back into the office the next day, relaxed, confident, already talking about logistics like the hard part was behind him, everything he thought he controlled was already gone. The locks were changed, the accounts frozen, and the lawyer waiting calmly, like someone who had delivered this explanation many times before and knew there was no softer way to do it. He laughed at first, because men like him always think disbelief can undo reality. Then his voice got louder, then sharper, then quieter, as each sentence from the lawyer dismantled another assumption he'd been living on. The company was no longer his. The house was tied to business assets, the car, the cards, the cash flow. All of it existed because of structures he had stopped paying attention to the moment he thought loyalty was guaranteed. When he finally stopped talking, it wasn't anger that filled the room, but confusion. He asked if he could sit down. He asked if this was really happening. And for the first time since I'd known him, he wasn't performing confidence, he was searching for it. The secretary stopped answering his calls within days. At first, he told himself she was overwhelmed, then busy, then emotionally distancing herself because things were complicated. Eventually, she told him the truth in a voice stripped of flirtation or ambition. She had cancer, aggressive and fast moving, and her life had suddenly narrowed to doctors, treatment schedules, and survival. She didn't want chaos. She didn't want instability. And she certainly didn't want a man whose world had just collapsed and who had nothing concrete left to offer. She didn't leave him dramatically. She simply let go, because illness has a way of clarifying what matters, and he no longer did. The apartment applications were denied one by one. His income was frozen pending litigation. Friends who had once admired him stopped returning messages once it became clear he wasn't temporarily embarrassed. He was undone. Months later, I heard that her condition worsened. Then, quietly, that she was gone. He didn't attend the funeral, not because he lacked feeling, but because by then he had no place in her life, no role, no ground to stand on. The divorce finalized without fireworks. There were no public accusations, no dramatic speeches, no final confrontation that would make the story easier to tell. There was simply nothing left to divide. I rebuilt slowly, deliberately, without announcements or spectacle, placing my name where his used to be and letting the work speak for itself. The last time I saw him, he was sitting outside a building that once carried our logo, smaller than I remembered, not poorer in money alone, but stripped of the certainty that had once carried him through rooms like he owned them. He asked me if I ever loved him, and I told him the truth, that I loved the man who built with me, not the one who assumed I'd disappear the moment he decided to leave. People still ask about him sometimes. I say we built something together, and then he confused entitlement with ownership. And some people don't realize what they're standing on until they step off it, look back, and understand too late that the ground was never following them.